You made it to level 2, deeper questions leading to deeper answers. I'm Tomás Garza, and I'm here to help you decide to transform. I'll be setting the pace for the process to support your unfolding. Learn and commit to a practice that brings simplicity and an awareness of what is ready to be released. Join me now and allow the experience of a deeper sense of love. Welcome to Decide to Transform. I'm your host, Tomás Garza, and I have a special encore appearance from Dr. Roxana today. You may remember Roxana's show, Permission to Laugh, Love, and Live, from just a few weeks ago. And Roxana and I were talking at the end of that show, and we began talking about something that is of profound importance to her and profound cultural importance to me. And I know that you are going to enjoy hearing all about it today. We began, and I'll read Roxana's intro in a moment, but we began talking about native healing traditions from Mexico, specifically the Mexica healing tradition from the Valley of Mexico. Now, Roxana will tell you all about that, but let me read this intro from Roxana. And again, let's invite you to listen to that show from a couple of weeks ago. Permission to laugh, live, and have fun, please. Right? Let's all do that. So Roxana is formally educated in botany, ecology, toxicology, and environmental biology, yet has been studying and practicing energy medicine for more than 10 years. She made this switch as a result of her own healing journey, in which her chronic allergies, asthma, and immune system imbalances were cleared. Roxana was first introduced to the Mexica healing tradition in November 2012, when a friend lent her the book 2012 to 2021, The Dawn of the Sixth Sun by Sergio Magaña. This book contained the first healing meditation that Roxana embraced and was able to complete. After reading this book, Roxana and her husband traveled to Mexico in February 2013 and 2014. Both times, they pursued spiritual, historical, and cultural training derived from the Mexica, including the Toltec and Nahuatl cultures, as offered by the Centro Energético Integral. In addition, their teachers traveled to Ontario, where she's from, to provide additional training in waking and sleeping dream techniques, plus healing with the elements and nature. Roxana understands that life is a balance between the heavy and light emotions. As we evolve as a species, humanity is ready for more love, light, play, laughter, acceptance, joy, and understanding in our lives. And I couldn't agree more. Roxana, welcome back.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be doing this again.
This is so much fun. And thank you for mentioning the Mexica healing traditions at the end of the show last time. If you had not mentioned that, then we certainly wouldn't be here. And we certainly wouldn't be exposing the listeners to a real, not well known, but very in-depth healing tradition. So you started this journey in 2012 when a friend lent you the book. So tell us a little bit more about the book and what your experience was there.
So, this friend came over one evening and he offered two healing techniques, one to myself and to my husband. And with those healing techniques, both myself and my husband went, whoa, this is powerful. And so our friend was exposed to the book and this teacher when this teacher came to Ontario. And so that first time Sergio was in Ontario, we didn't go, but we came and we experienced these healing techniques. And it was like, oh my gosh, we have to read this book. Mm-hmm. So I read the book first, and then my husband read the book. And then it's like, we both need to go do more training. And they offer the training in Mexico 3 times a year. And we've been there twice in February. And it's just so powerful and so transformative. And so with that first meditation, it's like I've been exposed to other meditation practices and I could do them for a while and quiet my mind. And then, other things would come back in and I'd lose track of it and get off sync. And so with the first meditation that stuck, it was because there was actually a pattern to it. So you would do the meditation for 13 days, and then you would give yourself an 8-day break. And then that was a 21-day cycle, and then you would keep repeating that. And to me, I really valued that 8-day break because it gave you time to be human again, right? Just to, sleep in the morning or catch up on something else. And I also really found the healing was so powerful to me because it connects us to the cosmos, to the earth, to our ancestors, to ourselves, to nature. And so it gave my mind something to focus on. So you'd focus on the breath, then you'd focus on which movement you are in. And it would really give you the focus in a meditative way. And each sort of stanza within the meditation was to clear ancestral patterns or to clear your own karmic patterns. And you'd go through these clearings, and I really noticed differences and shifts and changes. And I would, I would get up and do that meditation with the dawn. And for me, before that, it was like, no, I need to sleep in or, find other reasons to avoid the other meditations. And this one, it was like, I put it in my calendar and it was like, okay, today's day 2, today's day 3, and work through them. And then, yay, tomorrow's the break starts, right? So you'd always have the next cycle to look forward to, the next break. And you kept repeating it until certain things were shifted and released.
Okay. Well, now this brings up a lot of questions here. When your friend introduced you to these healing techniques by loaning you the book, had you had a lot of connection with Mexico?
Before I was lent the book, I'd been to Mexico once in like 1992,
Mm-hmm.
sort of on a school field trip.
Okay.
And at that time, Mexico wasn't meshing and it was really different. Whereas this time, there was just the energetic connection. And to me, it always felt like because we were connecting back to the traditions and the culture, it wasn't just a superficial trip where you're sitting on a beach. And I honestly, that first trip, I felt very uncomfortable because of the dichotomy between the wealthy and the not so wealthy.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
part of the trip was down to Acapulco, and you've got resorts and you've got, these wealthy enclosures. And then you've got people living in little shanties and shacks. And so I was really very uncomfortable that first trip. So that was 92 to 2012. So in those 20 years, I'd already started my healing journey. And so with that, it actually gave perspective to what was going on in Mexico as a country, what was going on in the culture. And Sergio honored the fact that 2012 was the first time that this information was allowed to be shared. Rather than, so when the Spaniards came, so 500 years ago-ish, the culture and the traditions and the healing and the spirituality, it sort of went underground.
Okay.
It became this very oral tradition that, grandparents would pass down to their grandchildren. And so with this period in the Aztec calendar, in the calendar of the Mexica, in which between 2012 and 2021 is the transition phase between the fifth sun, which we've been in for a long, long time, and the sixth sun. So in the fifth sun, was when humanity went through their bullying phase and had lots of wars and criticizing each other and picking on each other and creating cliques and, just being not very pleasant. And the sixth sun is, in New Age language, it's the dawn of enlightenment, the age of Aquarius, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move forward into the sixth sun, that's when humanity learns to heal our shadow, our heavy pieces, our heavy emotions, and move forward with lightness, love, understanding, compassion, acceptance. And we're bringing forward these lighter emotions and bringing balance. The way I was taught in the Western view of things, the heavy emotions are meant to be pushed down, right? As a girl, as a child, I was told to stop crying or teased for crying. So you push down the sadness or whatever's creating the emotion. And then it wasn't until I was in my 20s and 30s that realized, no, I need to honor these emotions. There are reasons to be sad.
Yeah.
And in our Western culture, it's like it's ignored or it's put down versus being, let's celebrate or let's understand where those heavy emotions are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can heal them and move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important cultural dynamic that that we just can't ignore, and that applies for everybody in North America, men or women. There are certain emotions that societally we're taught to suppress, or that we should never have them, including sadness, compassion, sometimes even joy, to be perfectly honest, which is why
Right.
people need to listen to our last show. Right?
In the Western culture, both ends of this emotional scale are frowned upon. And so, yeah, I really loved that in this Mexica culture, it's about balance. It's
Mhm.
about finding the balance between the heavy and the light. And I'm using some words that are very important to point out here. I'm
Mhm.
calling the emotions heavier and lighter because in the Western world, we talk about negative and positive. We talk about bad and good.
Mhm.
And those are judgmental words.
Right.
Those words that actually say it's bad to feel sad or it's bad to cry when you scrape your knee, versus acknowledging there are times when tears and sadness are appropriate and there are times when joy is appropriate.
Mhm.
And so I really liked how they just call them heavy and light versus negative and bad and good and positive.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I like that too. Language really, really matters, and it truly does. And I find so many things, so many components of this interesting. The timing, number one, you were introduced to this book in November 2012. Well, everybody is probably listening to this thinking, okay, December 21st, 2012. Well, that was commonly referred to as the end of the world. So say some more, if you don't mind, about that whole dynamic. Because here we are 8 years later, and we're still here. So the gloom and doom never happened. But what's really going on with that?
So in the Mexica tradition, death hasn't been looked at the way it is in a Western culture. Death isn't
Yeah.
necessary an ending, and it's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
In the hieroglyphs that the Spaniards came over and translated and interpreted, they translated death to mean their view as in life ends, humanity ends,
Hmm.
versus looking at death as being a change. So a caterpillar dies when the butterfly hatches, right? So that's a transformation. That's
Yeah.
the death of the caterpillar as it transforms into the butterfly, is an analogy of the death of the old way humans lived as this new way we can live comes forward.
Hmm.
And so in indigenous cultures, and here, this is not just the Mexica culture. This is a lot of indigenous cultures. They also considered the dream state equivalent to a death state
Yeah.
because our physical body, we lay down and we sleep, and we have our unconscious, our subconscious comes forward with all of these stories and all of these patterns that it shares with us. And we're not dying,
Mhm.
but we're in this other world, this other state. And
Right.
so to me, that's also part of the stories and legends that have come forward, is the misinterpretation of the wording that death meant the end of humanity versus the change and shifting and the transformation from being human in
Yeah.
one way to being human in this whole new and exciting way.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, the timing of this is inescapable. I know you feel that way too. And you know what the term that a number of listeners might be familiar with is the Tibetan term bardo, a gap, literally a gap. In other words, a continuation of existence, life force from one state to another. Same thing that we're talking about here. So, you know, why do you suppose that you were lent this book November of 2012?
For me, everything happens for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything unfolds the way we need it to.
Yeah.
So it was like the right time on my journey, the right time for this friend. We're still in touch with a friend and talk about this stuff all the time. And it was really interesting because the friend was originally planning to go in February of 2013, and then they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Things came up in their life, and they chose not to go at that point. So it was like we needed to go for us and to open us up to this new way of being.
Cool. Okay. Well, so you went in 2013 in February. Describe some of the personal transformation that you underwent there.
Um, well, so with this being a spiritual pilgrimage,
Mm-hmm.
we were based out of Mexico City, and from Mexico City, we went to various locations, various historic sites, various sacred sites within driving distance of Mexico City. And at each site, we learned about the techniques and practices that were used at those sites 500 years and longer ago. So,
Yeah.
for example, one of my favorites was Tula, which is the place of no time, in which I could actually, at that moment, feel time stopping and see past events that had happened in the past. I was intuitively seeing and feeling what life would have been like 500 plus years ago, right? It was very powerful. The energy of that site, the the practices, the techniques we did there to allow time to change. So what I've been interested in time for a while, because time is really a human construct, that humans invented the clock. Nature has time in terms of seasons, time of the day, phases of the moon, but things aren't as rigid as, like, things have to start at 9 o'clock on the nose, right? They're more fluid.
Right.
So being at Tula and understanding the fluidity of time and how quantum physics is coming forward to address that time is more, it ebbs and flows. It's, to me, I always visualize it more like an infinity symbol, like the number 8, in
Yes.
which it crosses itself and it can go backwards and forwards and it slows down at different times. And so the lineage, the knowledge from the past is coming forward, and yet it's so appropriate for today.
Yeah, well, and I think it's very interesting that after the Spanish took over in the 1500s, that all of these teachings went underground. And is there a reason why that December 21st, 2012 was the date when they could then be shared again publicly.
because humanity was at the point where we as a species were ready for this and we needed this. We need this information and all the other information that's coming forward from all the other indigenous healing lines. So Ayurveda and acupuncture, Chinese medicine, all those other ancient cultures are also coming forward now because humanity needs these techniques in order to find the enlightenment that we're looking for, in order to find consciousness, in order
Mhm.
to accept that we're all human beings on this planet together.
Yeah. And it's all available right now. And so here we are releasing this episode here on December 21st, 2020, exactly 8 years to the day from the supposed end of the world. Well, and in fact, that I think that we can all say that it certainly has been a transition. So you went back the following year. So what happened when you were there? Yeah.
So, so the second time we went, my husband actually went longer than I did because he went to learn more of the Nahuatl language.
Okay.
Because there's also a power in that ancient language and bringing that language forward. And so I'm not fluent in it, and my husband isn't fluent in it either, but there's certain words that have power to them,
Yeah.
that have a different underlying energy. And to me, one of the other places we went was in a cave where they had like a hole, a tunnel, like a telescope, because the ancient Nawat were really tuned in to the cycles of the planets, the cycles of nature. And so with this hole, you could actually, like moonlight would come down it, and it was actually like a telescope in
Okay.
terms that they could track things.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't happened yet, but the lineage talks about how in 2021 is when at Teotihuacan, the pyramids actually line up with the planets and the sun and the energy, which is coming together to be even more powerful.
Okay.
So, yeah. And with Teotihuacan, there's a certain way in which you walk between the pyramid of the moon, the pyramid of the sun, and then the pyramid of the feathered serpent. When tourists show up, everyone flocks to the pyramid of the sun because it's the biggest. Everyone wants to go
Right.
see the biggest.
Yeah.
And yet, you need to go from the pyramid of the moon because we're moving from our shadow into our light. So you explore the pyramid of the moon, and we actually walked up and down the stairs in a serpent pattern because, like the snake that sheds its skin, we as a species are in this transitional phase. So
Right.
the chrysalis, the cocoon that sheds its outer skin to become the butterfly, the snake sheds its outer skin to rejuvenate itself, and that's what humanity is doing. So as we were
Yeah.
doing the walking in the pyramids, we were actually doing the techniques to help ourselves heal.
Mm. Okay. I love that. Yeah. And so in 2021, is there a specific date when this energetic alignment occurs with the pyramids?
I was trying to remember that, and to me, think it is in February, but the exact
Mm.
date in February, I'm not positive of.
Okay. Now, and when it happens, I think we're all looking forward to it. And I know some listeners have been to Teotihuacan, and it's an amazing, amazing place. So that is really very interesting, the symbolic healing of the serpent pattern and the representations there. Now, you mentioned that some teachers from this lineage came up to Ontario, where you're from, to teach in Canada. So what was that like? And what's going on up there?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of hubs in Ontario. So some of the teachers have come to Guelph, which is the city I live in.
Hmm.
Some of them have gone to Owen Sound. And there's been different teachings at different dates and locations. And so some of the teaching, it's around your birth name. So in terms of they take your date of birth, month, day, and the time of birth, and they calculate based on the Aztec calendar
Okay.
what your name in Nahuatl would be. My name is Tonalkawat, which is light of the snake, healing energy of the snake. And so that's one other process we went through. They've also brought the lineage of healing with plants and nature, which
Mm-hmm.
I would say that of everything I've learned, like in this moment, that to me is the strongest because I've always had a nature connection. I've been the one who's always wanted to go for the hike and
Okay.
I always work in my garden and I'm always outside in my bare feet in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so with learning more about the indigenous cultures and how they looked at earth, air, fire, and water, and how you'd use it for yourself and healing of others. It's been incredibly important. And then asking the wisdom from the plants, asking the plants themselves, what's their wisdom? What do they need to impart?
Mm-hmm.
What is this person ready to learn from this plant? So in the Mexica tradition, it's been very interesting because there's a lot of it that's based on mathematics and understanding the cosmos and understanding our place within this cosmology. And then there's this other part that's so intuitive. It's like, what does this piece of stone have to say to this person or this plant? And using the elements very intuitively versus this very almost logical way of looking at things based on the numbers and this almost a science behind them. And they both have these amazing strengths that sort of come together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really very interesting. And you mentioned that in your bio is the healing with the elements and with nature. So these folks are then bringing this. Are they coming to other locations all over the world? Oh,
I know some of them have been to Europe,
mhm.
and I know lots of places in the States. So north, like New York, um, like California, sort of, there are all kinds of little excursions organized.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure the excursions are on hold right now,
Probably.
like a
Yeah.
lot of things. But
Mhm.
yeah, so they've been to the UK, they've been to the Netherlands and different places in the States. And I'm pretty sure to Brazil and places in South
Fun.
America,
Okay.
Italy.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, our teachers have been to many
They're
locations.
making the rounds. I love that. Now, is there a particular name for the healing tradition? How do they call this?
The See, I've never heard any of our teachers using a name other than sort of it's the Mexica tradition.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Closest I would think would be the Curandisma, and you
Mm-mm.
could probably pronounce that a lot smoother than I just did.
It's yeah, curanderismo in Spanish.
Yes,
Yes, but which is a form of a definitely powerful form of healing.
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my interpretation is that the Curandismo is a combination of the ancient Mexican or ancient Central American, South American, that was
Mhm.
combined with the European and combined with the African influences.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's vintage Latin America right there. Beautiful. It's a total syncretic mix. So yeah, so if it's just called the Mexica healing tradition, the reason I ask about the name for it is because this is not something that is super well known. At least it doesn't get a lot of high profile press.
And I have often wondered if the lack of high profile press is deliberate. It's
Mm,
almost like each individual who's ready for this will find this. It's really about trusting yourself versus the next hype.
okay. Yeah. Well, and I love that. I love that. That may very well be. And based on what you've told me, I can picture people sitting there thinking the same thing. Let's just see who comes to us, see who's ready,
Yeah.
type thing. So now, how are you incorporating these wisdom traditions into your life and your practice?
For me, these wisdoms come into my life sort of every single day in what I do. And when I'm working with clients, they come in for certain people more than others. And
Hmm.
again, it's sort of knowing who's ready for which pieces.
Yes.
And that if people come and this is their first introduction, sometimes the sessions start with some more basics versus, to me, the Mexica tradition takes a lot of willpower, a lot of discipline. Because in any of the exercises, if you get out of sync in your cycle, so I'd already mentioned the 13 days on, 8 days off, repeat. If you get out of your cycle, you have to start from day one.
Right.
Some of these go 104 days, some of these go a whole year.
Okay.
If you miss it, you're starting from day one again. So you, like, I know that's why I was like so in touch with my calendar. It's like today is, I knew the day and I knew what I had to do and I set aside time.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's very important that you have to be ready to commit. You have to say, I'm unhappy with the old patterns. I don't like the old patterns. They're pulling me down. And I keep repeating it. I keep finding the same pattern coming up in relationships, whether it's a friendship or a love relationship or with a parent
Okay.
or a
Hmm.
child. It's the same pattern with work, with career. And it's like, okay, I can't repeat that pattern anymore. I really need to shift this.
Hmm.
So other traditions like the East Indian tradition also says that, in order to change a habit or a pattern, you have to do something for 40 days, right? You
Okay.
have
Right.
to do a gratitude journal for 40 days, or you
Hmm.
have to do your affirmations for 40 days.
Right.
And so that's in this tradition as well. You have to do your meditation for 52 days or 104 days, and you have to follow through, or it could come back again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and this is very, very interesting because people think of meditation as something entirely different than what you've been describing, a 13 days on, 8 days off. And you mentioned that you'd tried a number of different modalities. This one is the one that spoke to you. And this is very, very cool. I like that they make you repeat the entire cycle if you miss it. So did you ever miss that and have to start over?
Okay, so with the first um, meditation that I took out of Sergio's book, that one I completed. That one was like, okay, I'm biting this off. I'm going to do this. Um, we also took some training with the obsidian mirror. And the obsidian mirror is either 13 centimeters or 26 centimeters in diameter. And it's polished volcanic stone. And you use the obsidian mirror to actually see your shadow. And when you actually see the images in the mirror, you do breath work and different techniques to help you become friends with your shadow, understand your shadow, and integrate your shadow.
Mm.
And so, in, and again, you would do these techniques when you're going through a big life shift, when something would come up. And so, yes, I have had to, with the obsidian mirror, say, okay, this is way too intense right now. I can't live my life and do this, so I need a break, and I'll pick it up again. Right?
Okay.
So there's always you can always give yourself permission to say, hey, you know, this parent or that friend or something else is going on in the 3D world.
Mhm.
You know, my spiritual journey needs to take a little break, and then I'll come back to it. So, yes, there have been moments when I've just had to say, okay, I had a human day and I missed it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just so interesting because when people have told me about their own process with meditation, there's often a sense that I'm not doing this right. I'm doing it wrong. I'm having all of these thoughts going on while I'm supposed to be not thinking, which actually is not the case. But yeah, it's a very, very different the number of healing modalities that are out there in the world. And you mentioned when your teachers have come to Ontario that they have given you all some instruction on waking and sleeping dream techniques. I know people are curious about that one.
So I love the dream techniques
All right.
because in our dream state, that's when your unconscious wants to have a dialogue with your conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than looking at our dreams as just things that happen and we wake up and go about our regular day,
Yeah.
we can actually plant intentions for what we want to dream about. We can plant intentions for physical healing, emotional healing,
Mm.
improving career, improving relationship. We can set intentions to change a problem. When we're stuck on a problem, we can like turn it upside down in our dream state. And in the Mexica dream state or dream tradition, the you use animals. You invite animals to come
Mm.
into your dream state to help you with the learning.
Okay.
And so for the physical healing, if you want physical healing, you actually ask to dream about snakes, because snakes, with their shedding the skin and their transformation, are one of the animals that are imperative to physical healing.
Okay.
So when I learned this tradition, I had several dreams where snakes were coming in, and I'm exploring what they mean for me. What's healing in my physical body?
Okay.
How is my physical body healing and shifting through these?
Mm-hmm.
And so the spider, you ask to dream about spiders when you want to make a web that brings beneficial things to you,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you can dream about the owl when you want wisdom to come in. You can dream about the eagle when you want to become a lucid dreamer or find your own spiritual teacher.
Okay.
And so all the different animals come in and you ask for them. And again, it's very intentional that every night before sleep, you make sure you have about half an hour in which you want to start planting your dreams. And you breathe and you set the intentions and you say your power words to bring what you want into manifestation. So allowing your dream state and your waking state to really come together, to
Okay.
really mesh.
Yeah. I love this. Okay. Well, and this is something that you do then with frequency. So,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, so if you're able to talk about your most profound realizations with this, what would those be?
Okay. Well, some of my teachers have said that planting your dreams is the most important thing you ever do, and that you
Ah,
do every single day.
mm,
Okay.
Okay.
So what's my most profound dream realization, or most profound realization across the board?
How about both?
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was talking about asking for snakes to come into my dream state,
Hmm.
one of the dreams I remember really, really clearly, to me, it felt like we were actually back in ancient Mexico,
Okay.
and that there was a ritual being performed in a cave in which various types and numbers of snakes came into the dream to help with the physical transformation of myself in that lifetime and in this lifetime. That there was this huge connection between my energy now, the energy in that dream, and the power of the snake, both as my Nawat name and as a being that can really transform who we are.
Okay. Right.
And in Western cultures, there's a lot of fear around snakes
Hmm. Yeah.
because there are some poisonous snakes. They can be dangerous.
Hmm.
And yet, so for me in my dream, there was no fear. There was no fear of snakes. There was no fear of watching these images transform. It was just this really profound and deep knowing that this was wisdom coming forward.
Okay. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
Yes.
yeah. And then in my most profound realization from just the techniques in general is that every single person can do this. So that I, who came from the science background, I, who had physical challenges I wanted to heal, I, who had busy mind syndrome, that every single human being can do it, including me and including all the listeners. That you just need to say, I'm tired of what's happened up till now, and I want to look at this in a new way.
Right.
And that, to me, regardless of whether it's the mathematics that applies, the connection with the elements, the connection with nature, the connection with the cosmos, any of that really just boils down to, if this has piqued your interest, explore more, read more, watch more videos and podcasts,
Hmm.
and just see where it takes you. Just start following it.
I love that. Okay. Now that's a very profound realization. So I'm glad that's the one that you mentioned, is that every single person is capable of this. So now in your experience with the Mexica tradition, that's been your most profound realization. So what has been your biggest challenge? What was the biggest obstacle that you personally had to work through?
For me, the biggest obstacle was overcoming my fear of other people judging me for this.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That when I left the world of science to do energy medicine and holistic healing and indigenous healing, it felt like there was judgment from others. And I knew I was following my heart and my path, and realizing that it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks, because that would be me taking it personally.
Okay.
That would be me living my life based on how someone else wants me to live it. And I grew up in a family where it's like, what are the neighbors going to think? And I'm sure we've all heard that kind of stuff. You
Yes.
know, it's about blending in and fitting in. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't fit in to anything but my own way of being right now. And so overcoming some of those really old paradigms and those old ways of looking at things has been
Mhm.
huge.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, and especially given your background, because you have a background in several different scientific disciplines, including toxicology and botany, environmental biology, ecology. There's a lot of science background. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So now, have any
Just
of
being,
your, go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, being okay walking my own path.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And that's a profound lesson that we all have to work on, is being okay walking our own path. Now, have any of your scientific colleagues followed you into this particular tradition?
Um, I, I'm going to answer the question in a bit more general, because when I was in the toxicology lab, there were 6 of us that started hanging out together, and they've all left. One of
Oh,
them's a holistic nutritionist now. One went and did Reiki, so people I hung out with in the science world, there was a group of them that went and explored their own path.
okay.
Um, I do know people who have explored the Mexica tradition from mainstream. So people who work for government or consulting who have done this. So yes, it's not there. There's a number of us. And I'm pretty sure that most people followed this and found this because everybody was realizing we needed to do something different.
Yeah.
The path, the trajectory that humanity was on was the lemmings going over the cliff. It was
Hmm.
leading us down this path that was disastrous.
Right.
And so, yes, there have been many people who have paused and done various different healing modalities to find their truth.
Hmm. Yeah, I was just, I'm curious about that because this is something that I know comes up for people that were raised in a medical background or a legal background where I come from, is that the things like this aren't necessarily seen as uh, beautiful and wonderful. They're looked at, shall we say, askance. That's going to be my word. Like it's a little bit different, but different is good, as we've
Different is
established.
very good.
Oh
Different is very good.
yeah, yeah, it really is. And so, if that's the biggest challenge, what would you recommend to people that are curious about this particular healing tradition? Where
For
would you send them?
Yeah, for me, I would say trust your heart. And
Yeah.
if this tradition resonates with you, there's so many resources out there. They can call me and we can just talk about it more. You can find Sergio online. There's that center in Mexico
Mhm.
City where, there's resources there. Don Miguel Ruiz is another teacher who's written tons of books
Okay.
along this lineage, along, finding your own truth and really starting to question everything around you. That's the fifth agreement.
Yeah.
So follow, like, read the four agreements, read the fifth agreement, start seeing where this takes you.
Yes, because there's a lot of information out there. And I'm glad you mentioned Don Miguel Ruiz, the Four Agreements and the Fifth Agreement. These are books that a lot of people are familiar with. So if this is the same, is it the same lineage that you're working with, or how's it similar?
To me, they're connected.
Okay.
And it's like they're all under the same big umbrella. They're just slightly different, smaller nuances.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting because those books have done very, very well and are popular worldwide. A number of people have read them, and so you're encouraging people to take advantage of the material that's out there, which is great. And I would say travel to Mexico as well when we're able to do this, of course. But yeah, here we are recording this in 2020, releasing it in same year. So the center that you mentioned here in Mexico City is Centro Energético Integral, the Centro Energético Integral in Mexico City. And by the way, Mexica is spelled just the same way as Mexico, the country, but with an A at the end of the word instead of an O. Mexica, that's the name of the healing tradition. So, how can people reach you to find out more how they can work with you on this?
Okay. People are welcome to phone me. The number is area code 1-519-400-5463. That's in Canada.
Okay.
Um, you can find me on Facebook and the internet. My website is my first name and last name.com. So RoxanaRoshon.com. And my email is Roxana@roxanaroshan.com.
Okay. Yes. And these are all kinds of resources that people can take advantage of to take the next step with you personally and find out more information. So again, the phone number +1 519 400 5463. If you're calling international, you need the +1. That's Canada. And RoxanaRoshan.com. Roxana at RoxanaRoshan.com. Okay. So I have more questions because we're not done.
Okay, let's keep
Yeah, I thought I kind of want to keep going here because I have a couple more things to ask you. I thought we were winding down, but do you have, once we're able to travel, what are your travel plans?
once we were able to travel. Well, okay, so my husband and I have been wanting to go to Mexico to Teotihuacan for the February 2021. Like
Mm,
when we were last there, we said, okay, that's our goal when the energies
okay.
are connecting with the pyramids. So
Yeah.
yes, we would go back to Mexico City and the area. The
Hmm.
other one of the other areas that entices me is Peru, and we haven't been to Peru
Uh,
yet.
mhm.
So there's a huge Andean healing tradition connected to different areas in Peru and the wisdom from those cultures. And
Okay.
I have learned bits and pieces of that from other colleagues who have been down to Peru and come back and shared their learning.
I love this. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a travel theme lately. I have to tell you, on the last several episodes that I've recorded, a number of people have just begun talking about, okay, well, isn't this going to be wonderful when we're able to venture forth again? So, yeah, February 2021 is the date of the alignment, the energetic alignment at Teotihuacan. And very, very interesting stuff here. So, before we wrap up, Roxana, this has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed getting to dig deeper into the particulars of this tradition, especially as it's not one of the healing traditions that's super well known outside of maybe Mexico itself, and even there. So, what additional words would you have for the listeners here today?
Um, Explore where this needs to take you.
Mm,
Explore how you too can heal and find yourself as a whole person. That we as a species, we're at this cusp when each one of us takes responsibility for our own healing journey, our own path in life, and that way we can move forward as a species.
mhm. Yeah, I think you nailed it. Taking responsibility. No, that's it. Taking responsibility for our own life. And this is the Mexica healing tradition. And you can find out more about it by visiting Roxana at roxanaroshan.com or by giving her a phone call here, +1 519 400 5463. So, Roxana, this has been a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me.
I have really enjoyed this. I always love talking about healing and what we can do individually and collectively. And so it was a pleasure to be here again.
Well, thank you again for joining us. This has been Dr. Roxana Roshan. So check out this show as well as Roxana's previous show, Permission to Laugh, Live, and Have Fun, from a few weeks ago here on Decide to Transform. So it is December 21st today, 2020. So this is a very powerful day and a very powerful time for all of us. So we hope that you have enjoyed this show here today, and we will see you again very soon here on Decide to Transform. Have a great day, everybody.